Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, here in the UK, I've noticed a move away from traditional credit cards where people get themselves into a little bit of trouble after overspending. And many people are moving to simpler platforms like Klarna that just gives them the option to buy now and pay later. So today, I invited Matt Bivens from a company called Canopy onto the podcast to explore the technology behind these new trends. And also how providers can make alternative credit options like buy now, pay later safer for consumers, and the benefits of creating convertible credit solutions for both lenders and borrowers, and why the fintech industry should actually begin to embrace transparency. And hopefully we can also explore how embedded finance is the fault line for the future of the fintech industry, and finding a true market fit could lead to the next evolution of innovation in the industry. But I've probably revealed far too much already, so buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to the US, where Matt Bivens from Canopy is waiting to speak with us today. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Matt. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, for sure. Happy to be here. I am Matt Bivens, co-founder and CEO at Canopy. I spent the last handful of years building and growing Fintechs, from student loans to buy now, pay later, and now as the CEO of a modern loan servicing company.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. So I've got to ask, what's your origin story? How did you get here? Where did your passion for tech come from? And how did that collide with the world of fintech?
Yeah, I've always been a creator, a tinkerer, a builder. I started building websites back in sixth grade. I still have How to Build with HTML for Dummies in 1995. I then built my first computer in ninth grade, which sounds cool, but I didn't have the resources to purchase anything outright. So I had to go to the fairgrounds next to where I live and buy all the parts, which was cheaper individually, and piece it together. And that continued through high school and into college, where I just had a passion for product design and development. And then I started off my career post-college. My first role was as a designer and front-end developer, which was right around the time that the iPhone came out and the App Store. And so I just was fascinated about how you could build things that actually help improve people's lives that's with them all the time.
Wow, what a great story. I could just vision that perfectly of you just picking up those pieces, bit by bit and building it. And of course, how that path would eventually lead you to Canopy, which provides a configurable loan management and servicing platform. But can you offer a brief overview of what it is and what makes you different from other solutions, just for people hearing about Canopy for the very first time?
Sure. So Canopy is an API-first loan management and servicing platform. Right. And so when we say servicing, we're really referring to any company that needs to account for their users making payments. And if you think about servicing, it's a very large umbrella. Let's take it outside of financial services for a second. Uber services you when you have an issue with your ride. You call into Uber to talk about it. DoorDash or delivery startups service you if you have an issue with your delivery or the food that arrives at your door. It's very customer service, back office centric vertical. When you layer in financial products like lending or credit cards, you also need a system of record that can accurately and precisely account for all of your users making payments. And so that's what Canopy does. Our vision is to empower people and organizations to reach their full potential with personal, transparent, and safer financing. So let's break that down, because our vision, that's our 100-year vision. Yeah. It's very ambitious. Today, we're starting with fintechs and banks to help them launch more personalized, transparent, and safer credit and lending products. And we want to support those products with world-class servicing in a secure and compliant way.
And you mentioned the word a couple of times there, transparency. And before you came on the podcast, I was doing a bit of research and I was reading about how you think the fintech industry should embrace transparency. Is that something you can expand on today?
Absolutely. Let's just take one of your finances. I mean, Neil, Do you have a credit card today?
I'm afraid I do, yes.
Okay. And so when you make a payment to your credit card, do you know how that payment is applied? Do you know which transactions are getting paid off?
No, of course, no. You just pay a lump sum off that figure, don't you?
Right. And so you just sort of go through the motions and you
Yeah.
don't have the control. And so when we think about transparency, we're thinking about putting more control into your hands, which means that you actually understand your finances. You understand when you make that payment, how does that payment get split across all of your transactions? We call that at Canopy payment pouring. So you make $100 payment. How is that payment split across interest and fees and principal? And does your credit card company have your best interest in mind? Probably not. And so transparency helps everyone just do better.
And in your opinion, how can credit providers make alternative credit options? Let's say like buy now, pay later, which is proven to be a big hit at the moment. But how can you make options like that safer for consumers?
Yeah, so I really love this quote from Dr. Maya Angelou, which hopefully I don't butcher it, but it goes something like, you do your best until you know better. And when you know better, you do better. And so transparency helps companies provide safer alternatives. It helps companies actually understand risk better. It helps consumers and businesses understand risk better. And so when we think about transparency from a product standpoint, we're talking about real-time data. We're talking about providing visibility in your borrower dashboard to understand your finances, how your payments are being applied, what your upcoming payments are. If you're a customer service rep where I'm servicing your account, it helps me understand your risk level. What if you don't have money in your account this month? Well, I should defer your payment or lower your min pay. There was a ton of banks at the start of COVID in the US that had large CFPB fines because they weren't able to adjust or modify people's accounts in real time. And so transparency is about data. At our core at Canopy, we know time data, when your payment is upcoming, and loan data, what happens when you make this payment, better than anyone else. And so with that information, we're able to provide that in a more transparent way to the end user, the borrower or the businesses, as well as our partners, the Fintechs and the banks.
And you mentioned a few moments ago that the credit card companies, by and large, do not have our best interests at heart. Everyone's got different motivations. So what are the benefits of creating a convertible credit solution for both lenders and borrowers so everyone can win? Is there any benefits around that you can share?
I think that really boils down to flexibility and choice, which is most financial products today are commoditized. So no matter where you are in the world, if you think about the top 3 banks in your country, they basically all offer the same product. And it's not that people don't want different types of products. They do want that flexibility. Let's just tell a story about, imagine you're in the middle of the United States. You live in Kansas, let's say. And if you live in Kansas, there might only be one community bank or in your neighborhood. And that bank may offer a 3-year loan and a 7-year loan. Now, a 3-year loan is going to have a higher minimum payment. And if you can't make that minimum payment, you'd get declined for that loan as a consumer and immediately bumped up to the 7-year product. That means that you're paying 4 more years of interest. Why not a 3.5-year loan or a 4-year loan or a 5-year loan? It's not that the consumer wouldn't want that. And it's not that the bank doesn't want to give you that from a risk standpoint. It's that their underlying infrastructure, their servicing and loan management infrastructure is 50 years old. And the bank doesn't have resources to go back and fight that company. So the consumer gets left holding the bag with a 7-year loan. Imagine you are using your credit card that we talked about earlier. You swipe your credit card. You should have the opportunity to place that on a promotion, to put that on a buy now, pay later program. It shouldn't be 2 different products. And so when we think about converting credit solutions into something that is more flexible, this brings up our other value of personalization. You should get the product that you need at the time that you need it, not dictated to you through legacy solutions.
And again, when I was researching you before you came on the podcast today, I was reading more about your belief that embedded finance is actually the fault line for the future of the fintech industry. Great quote there, great line. But can you expand on that and what you mean by that?
Sure. I mean, it goes back to a lot of the points that we were chatting about earlier, that most lenders are on legacy providers, right? I mean, if you were given the choice to drive a car where on the outside the paint looked fresh, but the inside the engine had 500,000 miles on it, you might be a little worried driving that across country. And that's very much an analogy towards a lot of the legacy providers with banks. Even fintechs today, on the surface, may look really shiny and helpful with user experience and great design, but under the covers, the legacy providers are challenging to work with. You're getting commoditized products. You're getting lack of flexibility and personalization in the products. You have little transparency of how your payments are provided. And all of those things lead to a concern of safety. Let's take buy now, pay later as an example. Last year in California, that was over 90% of the loans given out. And up until recently, up until Canopy is helping to change this, those loans weren't always reported to the credit bureaus in the United States. And so there was no check and balance on the risk that was giving out to the consumer. And so we believe that by Canopy providing a solution that is more flexible, more personalized, more transparent, all of these things lead to a safer outcome for partners and borrowers.
So I'm curious, do you think finding that true market fit will eventually lead to the evolution of innovation in the industry too? Because it feels ripe for that.
I think that's exactly right. Paul Graham, who's the co-founder of Y Combinator, he gives a great piece of advice saying that make something that people want. Now, that is much easier said than done. But when you have product market fit, you have the product that is solving a real pain point, a real need for someone in a market that is massive. And the market that we're going after is all of lending, all of credit solutions, which is huge. But on top of that, the time that we're in right now is that more and more companies are providing safer solutions that people want. And so when I think about Canopy, I think about us being part of the new Fintech developer toolkit, which is companies, large companies, doesn't have to be a small startup. Companies like Uber are going to embed lending in their product because it helps with retention. It helps with engagement of their end users. That's what servicing is. Servicing is helping you do the things you need to do in your life. It's facilitating better life experiences. And so Canopy is helping to embed our platform in fintechs, in non-fintechs, in banks to help facilitate a better life experience. And all of these things can help provide, again, going back to our vision, a more personalized outcome. And that personalized outcome is where innovation comes in. We are seeing new products launch on Canopy every day. And so we are at the tip of the spear in terms of the next generation of credit and lending.
So I'm curious, what excites you about the future, where you're heading, and also the role that Canopy will play in that future too?
We are in the very early days. We are 2.5 years in. We've raised $18.5 million. And we have obviously big ambitions, as I mentioned earlier in the show, related to our vision. And so we're excited about bringing innovation in the financial world, making sure that, again, our vision is personalized, transparent, and safer products. And so that doesn't exist today. No one needs another debit card company and a product that functions the same as the nth company. And when I say nth, it's the 10th, 11th, 12th, 15th neobank. These companies exist because 10 years ago, there was massive innovation in the issuing processing space. Companies like Marqeta and Galileo helped pave the way for a lot of that generation of fintechs, which is why so many neobanks exist today. And so we are taking that and expanding upon that for the next 10 years as it relates to credit and lending.
And I think more and more of us are not using cash when we're out and about. And like you said, nobody needs another debit card. And there's a lot of hype around blockchain and crypto and so many other digital forms of payment. Is that something you're watching closely as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that blockchain is about securing data.
Yeah.
It's about immutability, which is core to what Canopy does, making sure that your data never changes. And as an example, not to get too technical or in the weeds, but things happen in the past. You swipe your card today to buy a pair of jeans, and then you refund it. Well, in most instances, when you refund something, companies will literally delete that transaction from your ledger. But that happened, right? And so what you need to do is create an offset where the purchase of jeans happened, but then there's an offset of the refund. It's still immutable, but it's more accurate and precise. And so I believe that that's the vision of blockchain. That's certainly something we're doing at Canopy in terms of securing data and making sure that it's always accurate. And, I think that whether you're lending through crypto or lending through more traditional means, there's a lot of amazing use cases that are still growing and being built today. And Canopy is excited to participate in all of the next generation of lending and financial products.
Yeah, it is an exciting road ahead, and I'll be following your journey very closely. But before I let you go, I always like to ask my guests at the end of the podcast to leave everyone listening with a personal touch of inspiration by sharing either a book that has inspired them or a go-to song that they listen to when they need to get their head in the zone or that's just important to them. So my question to you is, what are you going to leave everyone listening with today? And is there a story to accompany your choice too?
Sure. Wow. Great question. I would say there's a few books that have been quite game-changing in terms of how I think about the world. One of which is The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz, who's a co-founder of Andreessen Horowitz, a storied venture capital firm out in the Bay Area. And it talks a lot about, how do you make decisions when there's no easy decision, and really embracing the struggle of building and founding a company. Because if it was easy, then, as they say, everyone would do it. But it's okay to talk about, things being challenging and hard. And in a startup, there's always ups and downs, but it's where the trend line is going. And ours is definitely going in the right direction. A second book that I always recommend is Ray Dalio's, who's a co-founder of Bridgewater in the US. It's called Principles, and it really talks about the routine and the discipline you need to live your life to be successful. So those would be the two top of the list.
Awesome. And I'll get those added to our Amazon wish list. But for anyone listening that just wants to find out more information about Canopy, the topics we talked about today, or even contact your team, what's the best starting point for everything?
Sure. www.canopyservicing.com is our website. You can reach out to folks on our contact page there, or follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter at Canopy Servicing.
Excellent. I'll add those links to the show notes. As I said a few moments ago, I've loved chatting with you today, and your journey is one I'm going to continue to follow. And I'll never forget the story, your origin story of you going to those fairgrounds and picking up those PC parts, but also for talking about the fintech industry, why it should embrace transparency, and why embedded finance is the fault line for the future of fintech. Loved chatting with you today. Hopefully we can do it all again in the future, but more than anything, just thank you for sharing your story today.
Thank you, Neil. Great talking to you.
So every day I invite a guest on here to explore a different topic and how technology is transforming that industry. I'll tell you what I think, give you a little overview at the end. But ultimately, you have your unique insights and experiences too, and that's what I want to get out of you. This podcast only works with your feedback, so please, as always, email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn at Neil C. Hughes. If you just want to leave a question, a DM, that's fine. But equally, If you'd like to come on the podcast, sit here and talk about a different side of today's topic or anything at all, again, let me know. Tell me you listen to the show and we'll get you on here. And finally, remember, if you leave a rating and review for the podcast, send me a screenshot and I'll give you a shout out on a future episode too. But that's me done for today. So I'll return again tomorrow. We'll explore something completely different on a little adventure together where we'll let our curious minds wander. Hopefully you'll join me. But thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.